As the Biden administration faces more questions about those objects that they ordered shot down over North America, this morning senators received a classified briefing on the China balloon and the 3 subsequent smaller objects.
I think they certainly have information that is not available to us yet, and 95% of what was discussed in that room today can be made public without compromising the security of this country.
In terms of where there may also still be a gap is there really is not, to at least my understanding, that formal a process that if a university, a private institution, sends off some kind of research balloon, how that is appropriately registered.
Joining me now is Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen, who serves on the Foreign Relations and Armed Services Committees. Senator, it's always good to talk to you, especially today. You've just come out of the briefing. Yes. The whole country's been transfixed since the China balloon was seen going across the country. What did you learn that you can help us with? Because the administration is now saying very openly it looks like these 3 smaller objects were commercial or benign.
Well, I think that has been reported, as you point out, and we're still trying to get more information about them because they have been shot down in very difficult terrain to recover, and we need to recover what was left of those objects as they've been shot down, so we have a better sense of where they're from and what their intent was. But after the Chinese balloon traversed the United States and got so much attention, I think it's really heightened both the public curiosity and the interest on the part of policymakers to know what this is. And so there was a very loud cry, as you heard from the head of the Intelligence Committee, for more transparency from the administration about what this is and making sure that the public can understand what's going on. So I think that was a bipartisan call from members on both sides of the aisle, and I think it was heard loud and clear.
Did you get the answers you needed today?
Well, I don't think we have the answers yet, and that's part of the frustration that not only we in Congress have, but the public has, because we are still trying to learn more about what these are, and also to try and determine the policy that distinguishes different objects that are out in space. We know that the Chinese spy balloon was exactly that. It was a spy balloon. It was surveilling the United States, and so we had interest in seeing that we eliminate that. These other objects were flying in what appeared to be airspace, so they posed a threat to aviation, and so we need to make sure that they're not threatening the safety and health of people either on the ground or in the air. But we need to be very clear about what our policy is, what it makes sense to shoot down, what we need to know more about before we make that determination. And I think that's what we all hope will become clearer as more information is available.
Do you think it could be an overreaction to shoot down the 3 objects, the 3 small objects, which I'm told were likely balloons and commercial, we now know? Was it a mistake to shoot them down at huge cost for that and for the search for debris when it was pretty clear that they were benign? Was this an overreaction because of the negative political response to what happened with the big China balloon?
Well, I think what we heard is that they were operating in airspace that posed a threat to aviation. And so I think given that, it was not a mistake. But again, that's why I think it's important that we have a clearly delineated policy that people understand, so that we know going forward what determines our response in the United States.
A very credible Democratic House member who's on House Intelligence said last night on our air that the costs are prohibitive and that we didn't really need to go after them, that he sees no evidence that a small balloon or a small object like this ever threatens civilian airspace, civilian airliners.
Well, they certainly threaten civilian airspace when they're in airspace that planes are flying in.
No, and let me correct myself, Senator, that there's never been, a problem. There's a lot of stuff up there, and aircraft have never had a collision or been threatened by these objects.
Well, again, that's why it's important for us to get as much information about what these were, what they were doing, who sent them, and the recovery efforts are going to be very important.
Do you think the administration needs to be more transparent with the public?
Yes, as I said, I think that was a clear request from both Republicans and Democrats to let the public know, as well as members of Congress, those of us who need to set policy along with the administration, what this is and what our policy is going to be going forward.
We're also getting word from the Wall Street Journal that the U.S. military is considering sending Ukraine thousands of seized weapons and more than 1 million rounds of ammunition, once bound for Iran-backed fighters in Yemen. Are you familiar with that program?
I don't know about that program specifically, but what I do know is that given the beginning of Russia's effort to go on the offensive in Ukraine, that they're going through a lot of ammunition, a lot of equipment on the Ukrainian side, and we do need to do everything we can to supply them so they're not, so that they can fight back against that Russian offensive.
And I just want to qualify that what the administration is saying now is that they were likely, that the other objects were likely balloons tied to commercial or benign activity. That nothing is definitive, of course, until you get the debris from very remote areas, if we ever can.
Right.
Let me turn to the deadly earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. It's an area you know well. You and Senator Graham reintroduced legislation to address the conditions of all of those displaced people in refugee camps. I've been there myself, as Syria's president has now finally agreed to open 2 more border crossings. Linda Thomas-Greenfield, the ambassador, the UN ambassador, was on this program yesterday appealing for that and for Russia not to veto further aid transshipments. What more can be done?
Well, as you say, it is absolutely horrific, the devastation, the loss of life, the challenges that the people who have survived are facing. And in Syria, in some ways, it's even more challenging because they don't have the access to the same humanitarian aid that they do in Turkey, because there has been so little ability to access Syria across the border because of Russia's opposition and Assad's opposition. So the opening of those 2 new border crossings is positive. We need to make sure that as much humanitarian aid as possible can get through, and we've got to make sure that it goes to the people who need it, that it doesn't wind up in Assad's pockets and with Assad's government, that it goes to the people who are in such dire need.
Well, thank you so much, Senator Jeanne Shaheen from New Hampshire, of course, from Armed Services and Foreign Relations. Thanks for all you are doing for those people there.